Mayor Prince is in the studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, gentlemen. Frosty out there.
Right?
When I came this way, my car told me it was 28 degrees.
Yeah.
Oh,
Let's not go there.
I'm just going to say, a week ago it was what?
85.
85.
So 85 to 28 in a week. Sounds a little bit like Bemidji.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. 20, what did she say? 26 was the lowest? 24
24.
to 64 today.
Perfect.
We are in northern Minnesota. That's how we get those beautiful leaf colors. Somewhere it's got to freeze.
Well, and then a couple days ago, we had that nice gusty wind that all gave us pause to reflect, huh?
Right.
We wonder how many leaners weren't leaning anymore.
Or leaning more. I know a couple.
I'm going to guess more than a couple out there.
Busy as usual, I'm sure.
Always lots going on, that's for sure.
Well, the fall is, we're in the last quarter. Some fiscal years started October 1st for some businesses, industry, and that city government is October 1.
No, it's a calendar year, but
okay.
really for us, we start working hard on the levy. In a typical year, we begin that at the end of the summer, usually July, August, and kind of work our way to set the preliminary levy in September, and then the final one in December. But given how tied up staff was with storm damage related things, we were a couple months behind. So we had some special meetings and all those things to accelerate. And so we set the preliminary levy at the end of September at 6%, which is the ceiling. It can be lowered. Last year it was. And so it'll be on council and staff to work to try to lower that prior to December when it's set. There will be opportunities for public input through the truth and taxation hearing, or, of course, through normal email and voice messages and just stopping people in the street, right? That happens too. But that's the process.
What do you think it'll be? I hear people want 4. Some people want 6.
I want 0.
Well, I want it to be as low as possible, and part of the reason I personally agreed to a little bit higher preliminary is because we didn't have all our information, and we're still sorting through what the real costs of the storm are going to be. So I thought better to err a little high in case something really unexpected shows up that we haven't thought about yet. But I'm well aware of what this storm has done to the people of our city. I mean, show me someone who didn't have an unplanned expense.
Right.
Show me someone who was fully insured for everything that happened. Pretty rare, right? I still drive around and I see tarps on roofs and things like that. And so I know that adding additional tax burden, especially this year, is not anything anybody really wants to see. So I get it. I will say that, sometimes in order to maintain a very low levy, you have to start looking at cutting things. So far, we haven't. We've tried to maintain service. But when you really, if you want to get to 0 and you have inflation every year and you have increasing labor costs every year per your union contracts and those things, unless your tax base can grow at the same rate, the only other choice is to, reduce something that you're doing. And you're always looking for efficiency. Don't get me wrong. That's a given too. But at some point, there's a piece of that. And then you got to start having conversations. So, for example, and I'm just using this as an example. I want to be clear. I'm not suggesting anything or picking on anyone. But, our recreation department has a $400,000 budget. One levy point is $85,000. So rec could potentially be a 5%, levy cost.
Sure.
Is it worth that? I mean, those are, when you start talking about cutting things, and I'm just picking on rec.
Right.
We could be talking about fire department, police department, roads, or whatever. These are the kinds of conversations you got to start having, right? And so if you're going to get your levy to 0, those are the kinds of things that you have to start thinking about. So we're set at 6. Does it end at 4? Does it end at 2? Is it 6? I don't know. That'll be a full council conversation. But those are the kinds of things when you start thinking about, cuts, because really what you're trying to do is sort through needs and wants. And, one person's want is another person's need. So when you start visiting with citizens about these things, it gets a little interesting.
When you're talking, you don't yet know what the full cost of the storm will be. Is there a cutoff point for insurance coverage, or can we find stuff down the road and still have it covered?
Oh, it goes out about 2 years.
Oh,
So
good.
we're not in any immediate threat there, but obviously some of our costs are not necessarily insurable. So that's the whole thing. Like, we're still working through reimbursement with the state, which is 75% of allowable costs, but you're submitting things and the state's determining, yep, that's allowable. Nope, that's not allowable. So what if you have something that you thought was going to get covered at 75% and the state deems it's not allowable and you get zero? We haven't gone through all of that. So for me personally, when I think about unexpected things, it's a little more along those kinds of lines than I'm necessarily going to find something in a building we didn't know. That's possible too, but some of those things are much easily handled through insurance.
Do we have a dollar amount for what curbside tree removal cost?
I want to say I think the total number was pretty close to $1.5 million of cash when it was all said and done.
It's a rather large unexpected cost.
Very much so. So, I mean, that's part of the discussion that we've been having is, excuse me, we had the cash because we maintain a 50% reserve of the budget. So we had $8+ million sitting in reserve. So you can dip into that. But then over time, you need to refill that reserve, because if you don't and something else comes along and now you don't have the cash, you've got a problem. So if at the end of it, we have to refill that reserve by $1.5 million or $2 million, which is kind of the early projection from staff, how are you going to do that? And you certainly can't crank that on the levy all in one shot. And so, we've had some ideas of, hey, as we sell property, can we, find a creative way to backfill that, or through the liquor store reserves and future liquor store profits and those kinds of things to keep it off the levy. And I think that's kind of where the council was leaning based on the last discussion. But those are all things that have to get finalized. So it is interesting because I suspect that the tail of the storm, the aftermath for most people and city government's probably going to go, a year at least before everything is settled and we really know what the real cost was to the penny and how well our repairs have held through the winter and just all of this kind of stuff for everybody. Planting trees next spring, the list goes on. I mean, I think we're not going to have fully dealt with this for a while.
And oh, by the way, you also have a legal battle going on with Northern Township. Still ongoing court proceedings. I realize you can't say a whole heck of a lot, but what is the status of that?
So this has been a 2-week trial. The first week was held at Northern Town Hall, and they presented their case. Northern Township did. This week it shifted to the city of Bemidji for us to present our case, and so hearings have been going on at Bemidji City Hall. Now, these hearings are open to people. If you want to come and sit there and pay attention and watch and learn, you're more than welcome to do that. Of course, this is a courtroom, so the judge is presiding, and you have to follow those rules and instructions and those kinds of things. But you can certainly do that. And tonight, at the Sanford Center at 6 p.m. will be the city's public hearing. So if you want to come and express to the judge how you feel about this issue, you can do that at the Sanford Center, as I said, tonight. And it doesn't matter if you're from the city or from Northern Township or Eccles or wherever you are. If you have an opinion on this and you want the judge to hear that, you get to do that. So Northern Township held their meeting last Wednesday at the fairgrounds, and we're holding ours at the Sanford Center. So this is all part of the process. So we're going to get through that. And I was on the witness stand myself on Monday, providing testimony, 4 hours. So it was a while. Ooh. And so was former council member Ron Johnson. He was actually the first city witness, so he was on the stand for 4 hours before I did. So that was kind of Monday. And so there's a number of city staff and experts and all those types of folks that give testimony, just like Northern Town Board members did, and they're experts and such. And so at the end of the week, that portion of the trial will be finished. However, there's still a period of time that goes beyond that for public comment and for attorneys to exchange briefs and notes and information and all those things. And I believe the public comment period ends on October 24th. And then at that point, pretty much all the information is in front of the judge, and the judge can move forward with a decision. However, the judge has months to make that decision if she chooses to use that. I doubt that she will, because I think she understands the urgency of the situation with needing to coordinate with the county to get pipe in the ground during their county road project. But, she's certainly under no obligation to expedite this. So once it's in her hands, we'll see what happens.
So, when I think of a trial, I'm thinking there's law and precedent, and this is what the ruling should be based on. That's not the case in this situation.
Well, underneath it is. There still is precedent. There still is law about how this can and can't happen. So there's a piece of that for sure. It isn't just an opinion, related thing, but I do think that how people feel about it does have some impact. Obviously, they wouldn't have these public hearings if that wasn't a consideration. But it's a data point, I think, just like all the other things you just mentioned. They're all data points.
And it's something for most of the country, don't see every day as a city having a new town be part of that area.
Yeah, it doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. I mean, there are other parts of the state, and you can research those things. Some have done so successfully. Some have done so and regretted it. It's cut both ways. I had an opportunity to address the folks at the county fairgrounds at their public hearing last week, and really what I tried to convey more than anything is that, we are an ecosystem. The city, the townships, our neighboring small cities, we all come together to form a community. And how we treat each other through this current disagreement will in large part determine how we treat each other afterwards. And there's going to be a decision. Something's going to happen, and then we all need to move forward regardless of what it is. And, maybe the best analogy is not necessarily a divorce, but it kind of is, in the sense that you see couples go through divorces, and at the end of it, they're no longer a couple, but they're able to salvage their relationship for their kids' sake or just for the sake of getting along. And years later, they have a good relationship, maybe even a better one than they had when they were married. Then you see other couples who get divorced, and it becomes scorched earth, and 20 years later, it's still scorched earth. Right. So, again, maybe that's not the best example, but when I think in my head of, people going through disagreements and coming out the other side, if you make the disagreement the focus and not the relationship, it's hard to say, what that outcome is. And ultimately, I think we all need each other. And so I hope we're able to work past our differences regardless of how the judge rules here.
Road construction projects over the course of the summer, certainly the roundabout way over there. The northwest part of the city. That's wrapping up. You got a building project with the YMCA that's around the corner. It's going to be an eventful next couple of years, isn't it?
It is, but if you think about it, it's been like an eventful 5 years already. As I said, I had to give testimony and I had to go over some stuff, and it just causes you to reflect. So thus far, over the last 5 years, we did both phases of the water treatment plant at the airport to deal with the PFAS contamination over there. That's $20 million, 2 phases, huge project. We're about to wrap up the wastewater treatment plant expansion, $12 million project, new clarifier, etc. That's about to get done. We've been knee-deep in the railroad corridor, as we mentioned before. We've had a number of street projects all over the city that have been happening, including the Ann Street roundabout and all of that work, and middle school and all of these kinds of things. And now we're talking about the retrofit of the Nielsen Reese, etc. When you look at all of this stuff that's happened over 60 months, which isn't really that long, it's a lot. And credit to our public works team, Sam Anderson. I always feel a little sympathy for Sam because he became the new city engineer, and all of these projects we're talking about, it was like, there you go, Sam, let's go get this done. So it's only going to continue. And I'm excited about the YMCA. I think we're going to start doing a little bit of that cleanup yet this year. I'm hopeful. But, for the YMCA to select a contractor to build the site, that's another one of those steps forward. And so I'm looking forward to having it here in our community. I think it's going to be great.
Lots of changes. Positive, forward ones.
Wasn't that the only constant in life? Change?
Yes.
Indeed.
Well, you had a busy week.
Always. But, there's always a little fun in the middle of all of that stuff because there's usually something going on. We had homecoming at BSU last week, so it was good to see some folks out to be a part of the game and some of the festivities around that and whatnot. And as I said, there's always something going on in Bemidji, so it's not all work. Occasionally there's a little fun in there.
Perfect. Well, thanks for stopping by and sharing.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity, and, I guess you got to layer here for a while because it's going to be 20 degrees in the morning and 70 degrees later, so, wear layers. I guess that's what Mom says, right?
Mom's never wrong.
Never. You have a great week.
You too. Thanks.